Every trader starts the same way, curious, excited, and full of dreams. You learn, you analyze, you finally catch that perfect setup and it works. The first win feels electric, then you catch another and another. For a moment you feel unstoppable. But then it happens. A small whisper in your head says, just one more trade. That's where everything begins to change. This is the illusion every trader falls into, the point where ambition quietly turns into obsession. You start believing you've figured out the market. You stop seeing probabilities and start seeing guarantees. Greed doesn't come roaring in, it sneaks in dressed as motivation. It tells you, you're improving. It convinces you that doing more means achieving more. You justify every decision with phrases like, I'm just taking advantage of momentum, or, I just want to make back what I lost. But underneath those words is something darker. The fear of missing out on more. Greed doesn't just want profit, it wants control. You start trading not to win, but to avoid the pain of being left out. The shift is silent but deadly. It begins with curiosity, the healthy desire to understand the market. Then comes confidence. You trust your setup, your plan, your edge. But once confidence crosses the line, it turns into overconfidence. And that's where destruction begins. You stop following your rules. You ignore your stops. You start believing your feelings are more accurate than your system. You forget that the market doesn't care how you feel. Imagine this: a trader takes 3 perfect trades. Each one follows the plan, risk is managed, emotions are calm, everything flows. Then the 4th trade comes. It's not in the plan but it looks good. He feels unstoppable. He increases his size. The trade goes against him. A little at first, then harder. Instead of exiting, he doubles down. Minutes later, his entire profit vanishes. The chart didn't beat him, his emotions did. That's the true trap of greed. It feeds on success. Every win becomes a trigger for overreach. The more you make, the more you believe you deserve to make. And that belief blinds you. It's not money you're chasing anymore. It's the feeling that money gives you, the sense of power, certainty, and control. That's why greed is so dangerous. It disguises itself as progress. Psychologically, this happens through what we call the emotional cycle of trading. Euphoria, anxiety, regret. After every win, dopamine floods your brain. You feel invincible. That's euphoria. Then comes anxiety. The market moves without you, and you feel like you're missing out. To silence that anxiety, you take a random trade. That's where regret is born. You start realizing that your biggest losses never come from bad setups. They come from emotional reactions to good ones. Every impulsive decision you've ever made came after feeling too confident. That's because greed is not about wanting money. It's about the fear of missing out on more. It's FOMO disguised as discipline. It tells you you're being productive when you're just being impulsive. The truth is, markets don't destroy traders. Traders destroy themselves chasing what's already gone. The cure isn't to suppress greed, but to understand it. You have to see when excitement turns into compulsion. The moment you feel a rush after a win, stop, breathe, ask yourself, am I planning or chasing? That one question can save you from disaster. You can't kill greed, but you can expose it. Awareness is your shield. The more you notice your emotional patterns, the less power they have over you. Because the market doesn't reward emotion, it rewards discipline. So here's your exercise after every profitable trade: write down how you feel. Don't analyze the chart, analyze yourself. Are you calm and detached, or restless and eager to do more? Write it down every time. Over days, you'll start to see the pattern, the exact moment your trading shifts from strategic to emotional. That awareness will become your edge. Remember this: the market isn't testing your strategy. It's testing your self-control. Every just one more trade moment is a test of who you are when you have something to lose. So the next time that whisper comes, when greed says, you can get a little more, pause. Because that's not your instinct talking. That's your ego trying to turn profit into obsession. And the moment you listen to it, you've already stepped into the trap. Greed isn't just a mindset, it's chemistry. It's not only about wanting more profit, it's about how your brain reacts when you get it. Every time you win a trade, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that activates when someone takes a drug, wins a game, or receives a social media notification. It's the brain's way of saying, do that again. And that's where the trap begins. In trading, every profitable moment reinforces a chemical addiction. Not to money, but to being right. You start associating the feeling of correctness with your identity. You stop trading to execute your plan. You trade to protect that feeling. The more you feed it, the more it demands. It's not the trade that hooks you, it's the rush. This is called a dopamine loop, a feedback cycle where your brain rewards risky behavior because it produced pleasure once. You make a trade, get a small win, feel great, and your brain records that pattern as success. The next time you see something similar, even if it's not the right setup, your brain urges you to click buy. You don't realize it, but you're no longer responding to logic. You're reacting to a chemical signal. That's how greed hijacks your brain. The market becomes your casino. You stop looking for quality setups and start chasing emotional payoffs. That's why traders overtrade after a streak of wins. It's not because they're greedy for money, but because they're subconsciously chasing another dopamine hit. It feels like control, but it's really an addiction disguised as confidence. Each win rewires your brain to expect the next one. You begin to crave the feeling of profit rather than the discipline that created it. And like any addiction, tolerance builds. You need bigger risks for the same emotional reward. This creates the reward trap. In this state, your brain values the high more than the outcome. You no longer ask, is this setup valid? You ask, will this make me feel successful again? The market becomes a place to fix your emotions instead of executing your edge. Slowly, the cycle deepens. You win, you feel powerful, you lose, you feel desperate, so you chase the next win just to feel okay again. Psychologically, greed activates several cognitive biases that distort reality. First, confirmation bias. You start only seeing information that agrees with your desired outcome. If you're long on a trade, you'll search for reasons to justify staying long. You ignore the warning signs because your brain filters them out. It's protecting your ego, not your equity. Second, there's the illusion of control, the false belief that your skill alone dictates outcomes. You think, I called it last time, I can call it again. But markets aren't predictable, they're probabilistic. The moment you believe you can control outcomes, you stop respecting risk. Finally, there's the sunk cost fallacy. After losing, you stay in a bad trade or take revenge trades because, I've already invested too much. You start defending your past decisions instead of managing your present reality. Take this example, a trader wins big on a breakout setup. Confidence surges. The next day he increased his position size, because it worked last time. He's no longer following data, he's following dopamine. But markets don't reward repetition, they reward adaptability. When that trade fails, he doesn't cut it quickly, he hesitates, hoping it turns. When it doesn't, panic kicks in. Then comes revenge trading, trying to make it back immediately. What began as a logical trader has now turned into a compulsive gambler, driven entirely by emotion. This is what I call the greed spiral. It starts harmlessly with a win, followed by overconfidence. That overconfidence leads to bigger risk, because you start believing you're better than probability. The bigger risk leads to emotional decisions, and emotional decisions often lead to losses. Those losses trigger revenge trades, which are fueled by the need to get it back, and revenge trading inevitably feeds more greed. Win go overconfidence, go bigger risk go emotional decision, go loss go revenge go more greed. A perfect loop of destruction, powered not by logic but by chemistry. The scary part, it feels right while it's happening. That's why smart traders fall into it too. The brain tricks you into believing your emotions are insightful. It tells you, you've got momentum, keep going. But momentum in trading is not emotional. It's statistical, and emotion is the enemy of statistics. So how do you break free from the biochemical grip of greed? You can't fight dopamine with willpower, you need structure. The best traders build pause rituals to interrupt the chemical loop. After every win or loss, take a 10-minute break, step away from the screen, breathe. Write down what you're feeling. Don't analyze charts, analyze your state. That small pause resets your brain's reward circuit and prevents impulsive behavior. The goal is to break the association between excitement and execution. Trading should feel calm, not thrilling. Another powerful habit is the reset ritual. After a big win, instead of increasing your size, deliberately trade smaller or stop for the day. This reconditions your brain to associate success with restraint, not escalation. It teaches your subconscious that control, not risk, is what brings satisfaction. Over time, your nervous system starts craving balance instead of chaos. Here's the truth: professional traders aren't emotionless. They've just trained their brains to respond differently to emotion. When they feel the dopamine rush, they pause instead of act. They know that every surge of excitement is a signal, not to trade more, but to slow down. Because every emotional impulse is a test of discipline disguised as opportunity. In neuroscience, there's a principle called prediction error. The brain learns when reality doesn't match expectation. So when you resist the urge to act impulsively, you teach your brain that patience, not excitement, leads to reward. Do this consistently, and you start rewiring your entire relationship with trading. Remember this quote: real traders pause when others push. It's not about missing out, it's about maintaining control. The amateurs chase their next dopamine hit. The professionals guard their mental capital. The market isn't a slot machine, it's a mirror reflecting your discipline. Every click is either a conscious choice or a chemical reflex. The more you understand your brain, the less it can manipulate you. So next time you feel that surge after a win, the one that whispers, "Go again, you're on fire," stop. That's not intuition talking. That's dopamine demanding another hit. Smile at it, breathe, and walk away. Because the real profit isn't made when you click buy. It's made the moment you decide not to. Ambition and greed look the same from the outside, but they come from completely different places inside you. Both make you chase improvement, both push you to act, but one builds structure while the other destroys it. Ambition builds systems. Greed breaks them. Ambition says, "Let's grow consistently." Greed says, "Let's win faster." One is about mastery. The other is about obsession. And that's the line every trader must learn to recognize, because the difference between long-term success and burnout lies right there. Ambition gives you patience. Greed demands urgency. Ambition keeps you focused on the process. Greed traps you in results. In trading, that difference decides whether you last a year or a lifetime. Picture two traders standing side by side. Trader A is calm, focused, methodical. He starts his day with a written plan, clear entries, defined exits, fixed risk. He has a daily profit target and, more importantly, a daily stop limit. If he hits either, he stops for the day. He reviews journals and walks away knowing the market will still be there tomorrow. Trader B. He starts with energy and excitement. No plan, no target, just the urge to catch the move. He watches price action jump and feels his pulse quicken. Every candle looks like an opportunity. He tells himself, "If I don't take it, I'll miss it." He starts strong, wins early, and feels unstoppable. But then, greed starts whispering, "Keep going. You're in rhythm." By the end of the day, he's overtraded, overleveraged, and emotionally drained. The same force that made him feel alive in the morning empties his account by night. That's how greed works. It feeds on your wins until there's nothing left to feed on. It's not that Trader B lacks skill. It's that he doesn't understand where motivation ends and compulsion begins. Ambition is grounded. Greed is chaotic. Ambition grows through structure, plans, limits, and patience. Greed grows through emotion, impulse, excitement, and fear of missing out. One thrives on discipline, the other thrives on dopamine. Ambition says, "Follow your system." Greed says, "Just this one time." Every trader has both voices inside them, but only one can win. The problem is, greed often feels more alive. It gives you a rush. It tells you you're doing something, that you're taking control, that you're seizing opportunity. But that feeling is deceptive. It's the same chemical high that gamblers feel after rolling the dice. The truth is, greed makes you feel alive, until it empties your account. That's why it's so dangerous. It disguises destruction as energy. It convinces you that recklessness is courage. It tells you that slowing down is weakness. But the strongest traders are not the ones who act the most. They're the ones who know when not to. Here's what most people miss. Small emotional lapses multiply over time. You think one undisciplined trade doesn't matter, but that single act starts a chain reaction. One emotional decision changes your mood, your focus, your confidence. You start seeing charts differently. You hesitate on good setups and force bad ones. You break one rule, then another. That's emotional compounding. Just like profits compound when managed correctly, emotions compound when ignored. Every small lapse builds momentum toward a bigger mistake. That's why controlling greed isn't about controlling markets. It's about controlling emotional drift. To make this simple, imagine a visual model: ambition to strategic K, planned long-term growth. Greed, emotional G, impulsive G, short-term thrill. Ambition is stable energy. It channels desire through process. Greed is volatile energy. It burns fast and leaves damage behind. Ambition builds your future. Greed trades it away for a feeling. Ask yourself which one is running your trading desk. You'll know by your behavior. When you're ambitious, you prepare before you act. When you're greedy, you act and prepare later. When you're ambitious, you accept small wins with pride. When you're greedy, small wins feel insulting. When you're ambitious, you walk away after hitting target. When you're greedy, you keep trading because the market is still moving. That's the test. The best traders in the world aren't greedy for money. They're greedy for mastery. They're obsessed with doing things right, not with doing things fast. They know that every great trade begins with patience and ends with restraint. That's why the key lesson here is simple yet powerful. The best traders are ambitious about process, not profit. They treat consistency as their currency. They understand that the more emotionally neutral they stay, the longer they'll last. and longevity is where wealth is built. To help you protect that mindset, create a stop rule. If you exceed your daily profit target, stop trading for 24 hours. It doesn't matter how good the next setup looks or how strong your momentum feels, stop. Walk away. This rule rewires your brain. It teaches you that success isn't about squeezing every drop from the market. It's about knowing when enough is enough. It reminds you that discipline, not desire, defines greatness. Your pause after profit is what separates you from the average trader who burns out. The more you practice restraint, the more control you build over your impulses. You start building emotional muscle, the strength to pause when every part of you wants to act. That's what ambition looks like in action. Finally, here's your exercise. Grab a notebook and write down your why. Why are you trading? Be brutally honest. Is it to master the craft, to learn patience, to understand how markets move? Or is it to feel powerful, to prove something, to chase money? Your answer will reveal which side you're on, ambition or greed. Because if your why is purely financial, your discipline will disappear the moment you hit a big win or a painful loss. But if your why is mastery, every day becomes a lesson, not a gamble. Every win reinforces patience. Every loss reinforces learning. Ambition builds foundation. Greed burns it down. Remember, the market rewards the trader who thinks long-term, not the one who trades emotionally. Build structure. Set limits. Stay humble. And when you feel that rush of excitement, remind yourself, this is where ambition ends and greed begins. The market isn't a race to make more, it's a test to see who can stay in control the longest. Ambition gets you there, greed takes you out. Choose wisely. You think you're working hard, you're just overtrading. Every click, every chart, every candle. Your brain tells you that you're putting in effort, that you're improving, that the more you trade, the faster you'll grow. But that's the illusion. In trading, more doesn't mean better. More trades don't mean more opportunities. They mean more randomness, more noise, and more emotional damage. Overtrading is how greed hides behind the mask of productivity. It convinces you that you're being active, when in reality, you're being reactive. You don't realize it at first. You feel engaged, focused, even proud. You tell yourself, I'm grinding. I'm committed. I'm in the zone. But deep down, you're not chasing setups. You're chasing stimulation. You're addicted to the feeling of being in a trade, because being out of the market feels like you're missing something. That's greed whispering again. Don't stop. You're doing well. Keep going. And just like that, what started as discipline turns into compulsion. Here's the truth: traders mistake quantity for skill. They believe the harder they work, the more they should trade. In most careers, that logic works. More hours mean more output. But in trading, effort doesn't equal results, clarity does. The more you force trades, the faster you lose your edge. Trading isn't about how much you do. It's about how much you cannot do when it's time to wait. Yet most traders equate idleness with laziness. They think, if I'm not trading, I'm falling behind. But this game rewards patience, not motion. The illusion says more trades 10 more chances to win. The reality says more trades 10 more chances to lose focus, discipline, and emotional control. Every trade you take burns a little mental energy. Each decision pulls from your emotional reserves. After a few trades, your precision fades. You start to rationalize poor setups, widen stops, skip confirmations. You think you're still in control, but your mind is tired. This is where the law of diminishing returns quietly takes over. The first few trades of the day usually carry the highest focus and best execution. But after that, your mental efficiency drops. You're still trading, but you're not thinking the same way. Fatigue creeps in, emotion rises, and you start making decisions based on impulse instead of logic. You can't see it happening, but the quality of your decision-making erodes with each extra trade. Let's take a real example. Imagine a trader named Armin. He starts the day well prepared, solid plan, clear setups, proper risk management. His first 2 trades go perfectly. He's up 500 by noon. He's proud, confident, and focused. Logically, it's the perfect time to stop. But then greed whispers, "You're hot today. Keep going, double it." So he takes one more trade. Slightly forced, a little riskier, but it looks fine. The market fakes him out. He loses half his profit. Frustration kicks in. He tries to make it back with another trade, same setup, this time with bigger size. It fails. By the end of the session, his 500 winning day turns into a 300 loss. What changed? Not the market, his mind. His first 2 trades came from clarity. The last ones came from compulsion. Armin didn't lose to strategy. He lost to overtrading, the greed in disguise. Overtrading is dangerous because it feels productive. You convince yourself you're learning, improving, staying sharp. But in truth, you're burning energy that should be conserved for high-probability moments. Trading requires emotional capital as much as financial capital. The more you overtrade, the faster that emotional account drains. You start the day with confidence and end it with exhaustion. And the next day you're already behind mentally. Less patience, shorter fuse, more mistakes. That's the compounding cost of overtrading. So why do traders fall into this trap again and again? Because greed tells you, don't stop when you're ahead. It feeds off momentum. It tricks you into thinking the best time to trade more is right after you've won. But that's when your guard is lowest and your judgment weakest. Success creates emotional looseness. You feel untouchable, so you start to bend your rules. Greed wants you to believe that you're on a roll. It makes you forget that trading isn't about streaks, it's about survival. Every professional knows after a good run, your risk of a big mistake is highest. That's when discipline matters most. The solution is simple, but powerful. Build boundaries around your activity. Start by setting a trade count limit. For example, allow yourself only 3-5 trades a day, regardless of market conditions. Once you hit that number, stop, no exceptions. This forces you to filter your setups carefully, saving your focus for only the best opportunities. Second, track your performance by quality, not frequency. Review your journal each week and score trades not just by profit, but by execution quality. Did you follow your rules? Did you manage risk correctly? Did you stay patient? Your best trades will always have high quality scores, even if they didn't make money. That's how you measure real growth. Then, adopt what I call the stop after 2 wins rule. If you take 2 clean rule-based wins in a day, close your platform. That's it. No more. It sounds restrictive, but this single habit can change everything. Why? Because the moment you stop at peak clarity, you lock in not just profit, but emotional control. You end the day on discipline, not dopamine. You teach your brain that success doesn't mean doing more. It means protecting what's already working. Over time, this rewires your relationship with greed. It trains your subconscious that restraint is a form of strength, not limitation. This habit also builds confidence. When you stop intentionally, you stop associating trading with exhaustion and regret. You start to feel peace instead of pressure. And peace, ironically, is what gives you the edge that most traders never find. You become patient enough to wait for your zone, detached enough to skip noise, and wise enough to leave the market when you should. Because remember, trading isn't a productivity contest, it's a clarity contest. The trader who can do less better wins. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, one more trade won't hurt, stop. Ask yourself, am I trading to grow, or am I trading to feel busy? If it's the second one, you're already off track. Real progress in trading isn't about the number of trades. It's about the number of disciplined decisions. Every click should mean something. Every trade should come from intent, not impulse. Remember this quote: the best traders stop when they should, not when they feel like it. That's the difference between those who last and those who lose. The amateurs keep trading until they're drained. The professionals stop while they still have control. So slow down, trade less, think more. Let your ambition push you to prepare, not to overtrade. Because in the end, the market doesn't reward movement, it rewards mastery. Greed doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It hides behind small, harmless, looking decisions. The ones you convince yourself don't matter. You tell yourself, it's just this once. You move your stop a little further, take a slightly bigger position, close a winner early, just to be safe. None of these feel like greed in the moment, but collectively, they drain your consistency faster than any losing streak ever could. These are the greed-driven mistakes you don't notice, the ones that disguise themselves as logic, confidence, or experience. But beneath every one of them is the same emotional impulse, the desire to control outcomes that can't be controlled. Let's start with the most common one: over-leveraging. Just this once. Every trader knows what responsible risk looks like. You've got your position sizing rules, your max loss limits. But greed loves exceptions. It whispers, this setup is special. It's obvious, go big. You increase your size, telling yourself it's justified. Maybe because you want to recover from a loss or accelerate your gains. But what's really happening is that your ego is overriding your logic. You're no longer trading the setup, you're trading your emotion. And here's the truth: every account blow up starts with just this once. One oversized position can undo weeks of discipline. It's never the trade that kills you. It's the mindset that allowed it. Next comes ignoring your stop loss because it will bounce. You've seen the market reverse before. You tell yourself, I'll give it some room. But that room isn't strategy, it's hope. And hope is just greed in disguise. You don't want to take the loss, not because of the money, but because of what it represents: being wrong. Greed refuses to accept being wrong because it's addicted to control. It can't handle uncertainty. So you hold, you justify. You wait for a bounce that never comes. By the time you close, the damage isn't just financial. It's psychological. You've taught your brain that rules are optional. And once that belief settles in, consistency is gone. Then there's cutting winners too early because I'll enter higher. It sounds smart, like tactical profit taking. But more often, it's fear disguised as strategy. You're afraid the market will take back what it gave you. So you rush to secure the gain, telling yourself you'll jump back in. You rarely do. Or if you do, it's in panic. You chase, enter too late, and give back what you made. This constant interference is another microform of greed. It's the need to feel in control rather than be in control. The irony is, the traders who hold patiently for their targets aren't fearless. They've just learned to separate emotion from execution. They trust their system more than their urge. And then there's the subtle killer, jumping between setups because of FOMO. You scroll through pairs, charts, and timeframes like you're searching for a secret. Every move looks like an opportunity. Every candle feels like a missed chance. You start trading anything that moves, abandoning your original plan. You're no longer a trader. You're a chaser. The root of this, greed again. Not greed for money this time, but greed for certainty. You want to be part of every move, every rally, every trend. You can't stand being left out. But the more you chase, the further you drift from your process. You end up overexposed, underprepared, and emotionally drained. These small acts seem harmless, but they form a pattern, what I call micro-greed. Micro-greed is invisible while it's happening, but it compounds like debt. Each time you make an emotional decision, you weaken your system's integrity. One ignored stop, one oversized trade, one early exit. They all teach your brain that feelings are valid trading signals. And once your brain learns that, logic doesn't stand a chance. Over time, greed doesn't just cost you trades, it rewires your perception. You stop seeing setups objectively. You start seeing what you want to see. You force patterns where none exist. You interpret randomness as opportunity. That's the most dangerous part. Greed narrows your perception until logic fades completely. These are your emotional blind spots. You won't see them in the heat of the moment because greed makes you believe you're being rational. It's only afterward, when the damage is done, that clarity returns. That's why awareness isn't enough. You need structure to expose these blind spots before they repeat. Here's a practical way to do it. Perform a greed audit. Once a week, sit down and review your last 10 trades. Don't look at the profits or losses. Instead, ask one simple question for each trade. Was this decision made from my plan or my emotion? Be brutally honest. Mark every moment where emotion tore plan. You'll start to see patterns. Maybe you tend to increase size after a win or move stops after a loss. These patterns are your emotional leaks, the places where greed silently drains your edge. Your job isn't to eliminate them instantly, it's to recognize them so they can't operate in the dark. The next step is to protect yourself from these traps before they appear. You do that by predefining exit if then rules. Instead of deciding emotionally in the heat of a trade, decide logically before it starts. For example, if price closes below X level, I exit immediately. If I hit my daily loss limit, I shut down for 24 hours. If I reach my target, I don't re-enter for at least 30 minutes. These small conditions remove emotion from the decision-making process. You're not leaving room for hope, fear, or greed, just action based on structure. The moment you automate your response to uncertainty, you regain control. The point isn't to become emotionless, it's to become emotionally aware, to see greed for what it is, curiosity in disguise. The urge to just see what happens is the mind's way of avoiding responsibility. You tell yourself you're exploring, testing, experimenting, but in truth, you're gambling, feeding that hidden need to feel something. And the market doesn't forgive that. As the saying goes, the market punishes emotional curiosity. That's the truth most traders never face. Greed isn't always loud or obvious. It doesn't always look like chasing profits or taking wild risks. Sometimes, it's just the quiet decision to bend one rule, one time. But trading doesn't punish you instantly, it punishes you slowly, through inconsistency, confusion, and burnout. The solution isn't to fight greed with willpower. It's to build systems that expose it, structure that limits it, and awareness that understands it. Because the moment you start recognizing these subtle forms of greed, the moment you catch yourself thinking, it'll bounce, or I'll just add a little more, that's when you start growing as a trader. Awareness doesn't eliminate greed, but it stops it from running your trades. And when that happens, discipline stops feeling like restriction. It starts feeling like freedom. You can't eliminate greed, you can only transform it. Every trader wants to destroy greed, to silence that voice that says, just one more trade. But greed isn't the enemy, it's raw energy, desire, ambition, emotion, misdirected. The goal isn't to kill it, but to redirect it into something that serves you instead of sabotages you. Because the same energy that makes you chase profits can also make you master your process. The difference lies in where you aim it. Think about this: greed and discipline are two sides of the same coin. One is chaos without direction, the other is control with purpose. Greed wants more now, while discipline builds more later. Both come from the same human need: progress. But only one understands that real progress takes structure. The traders who grow don't trade without greed. They've just learned how to convert greed into performance goals. Instead of obsessing over profits, they focus on measurable behaviors that build consistency. So here's the shift: stop trying to make more money and start trying to perform better. Replace emotional goals like, I want to make 500 today, with process goals like, execute 5 perfect setups this week, keep my daily drawdown under 2%, follow my trading plan without modification for 10 consecutive sessions. These goals redirect your emotional energy from outcome to process. They turn your focus away from what you can't control, market outcomes, toward what you can, your behavior. Every great trader knows this truth: discipline is not about suppression, it's about direction. When you replace the thrill of chasing profit with the satisfaction of executing perfectly, you rewire your brain's reward system. That's where neuroscience and psychology meet trading mastery. Your brain loves dopamine, the chemical of reward. Normally, greed hijacks it, making you chase the high of being right. But discipline can use the same mechanism if you consciously reward yourself for following the process. When you treat execution itself as the win, your brain begins to crave discipline instead of risk. That's the real transformation. Here's a concept to help you visualize it: the emotional bank account. Every time you follow your rules, you make a deposit into that account. Every time you act impulsively, revenge trade, overtrade, ignore stops, you make a withdrawal. Over time, your emotional balance determines how confident and composed you feel. When the account is full, built on discipline, you trust yourself. You act with clarity, you make rational decisions. When it's empty, you become reactive, fearful, and desperate for control. This emotional balance isn't built overnight. Discipline rarely feels rewarding in the moment. It often feels like loss. It feels like you're missing opportunities or leaving money on the table. But that's just the greedy part of your mind resisting structure. In truth, every time you obey your plan, you're building long-term trust, not with the market, but with yourself. And that trust compounds just like profit. Imagine you end the day green, hit your target, and feel that old voice whisper, you could double that. Instead of chasing, you close your platform, log your trades, and walk away. In that moment, it feels like loss, because you denied greed its dopamine hit. But in reality, you just made the most profitable trade of the day. You traded temptation for trust. That's what separates professionals from gamblers. Now let's make it practical. Start by creating a reward system for following your process, not your profit. If you followed your rules perfectly today, even if you lost, reward yourself. It could be as simple as writing a check mark in your journal, or as big as taking yourself out for coffee. The point isn't the reward itself, it's teaching your brain that discipline equals pleasure. Over time, the emotional reward of following your system will overpower the thrill of chasing trades. Next, use visual cues to keep your discipline front and center. The human brain is visual by nature. Seeing reminders changes behavior. Put sticky notes on your monitor with your process goals. Example: follow rules, not emotions, or quality over quantity. Set alarms to remind yourself to pause after wins and losses. Keep a visible log of your streaks. 10 days without breaking my rule. When discipline becomes visible, it becomes real. You can also track your emotional bank account with a simple system. Every day, rate your discipline from 1 to 10. Did you trade by the plan? Did you overtrade? Did you act from logic or emotion? Over a month, you'll see your true trading psychology in numbers. Your emotional trendline will tell you far more than your equity curve. Because consistency of emotion always precedes consistency of results. The key realization is this: greed is not evil, it's untrained energy. It's the fuel that drives ambition, curiosity, and progress. But without structure, it burns out of control. With structure, it becomes discipline. You can't stop the urge to want more, but you can redefine what more means: more control, more patience, more clarity, more mastery. So the next time that greedy impulse kicks in, when you feel the urge to push one more trade or hold a position longer than planned, stop and ask, what would a disciplined trader do right now? Then do that. Every time you choose discipline over desire, you deposit more trust into your emotional account. That's how consistency is built, not in charts, but in choices. Remember this line and keep it close. Discipline feels like loss to the greedy mind, but it's the seed of consistency. Every trader who's made it knows this truth. The short-term discomfort of restraint becomes the long-term peace of mastery. Because when you learn to channel greed into discipline, you stop chasing the market and start leading yourself. The difference between winners and losers isn't skill, strategy, or luck. It's emotional state. And the emotional state that separates the two is detached confidence. The ability to act decisively without attachment to the result. Detached confidence isn't bravado or arrogance. It's quiet, steady, and unshakable. It's the mental clarity that allows a trader to execute their plan, even when the market fights them, without letting greed or fear dictate their decisions. Most traders think the opposite of greed is fear. They imagine that if they can just avoid chasing trades, they'll be safe. But that's only half the picture. The real antidote to greed isn't fear, it's neutrality. Neutrality is the state where emotion no longer hijacks decision-making. It's the middle ground between euphoria and anxiety, where the mind sees the market objectively. When you're neutral, you're neither chasing a high nor running from a loss. You're simply trading the probabilities in front of you. Think about the traders who fail. They chase certainty. They enter a position because they want to be right, not because the setup fits their system. They hold losing trades out of hope, believing that if they just wait a little longer, the market will bend to their desire. Their P&L becomes a scoreboard that triggers greed and fear. Every tick of unrealized profit is a temptation. Every red candle is a panic. Emotion controls the trade, not logic. Here's a real-world story. Imagine a trader named Sarah. She spots a high probability setup but notices it's slightly against trend. Her system says yes, her gut says it might fail. She enters anyway. At first, the trade goes against her, but she holds out of hope, hoping for a reversal. She tightens stops, hesitates on exits, and guesses every decision. In the end, the trade closes against her. She lost money and worse, lost emotional energy. Contrast this with a trader who acts with detached confidence, enters based on rules, monitors risk, but accepts any outcome as a learning event. They neither celebrate small wins nor panic at losses. They stay neutral, calm, and focused. This state of calm can be formalized as the emotional equilibrium zone, a mental space where excitement, greed, or fear do not disrupt your decision-making. It's the psychological sweet spot for trading, where your mind responds rather than reacts, and probability matters more than outcome. The more consistently you operate in this zone, the less likely greed will hijack your behavior. So how do you cultivate detached confidence? First, consider pre-trade mindfulness. Meditation or simple breathing exercises before trading can center your mind. Even 5 minutes of focused breathing reduces stress, improves focus, and allows you to detach from the emotional ups and downs of the market. It's not about eliminating emotion, it's about observing it without attachment. Second, implement the no P&L rule. Hide your profit and loss during live trading. Remove the scoreboard. When you can't see wins or losses in real time, greed loses its power. You stop trading for instant gratification and start trading for strategy. The trade becomes an execution exercise, not an emotional roller coaster. Another practical exercise: ask yourself before each trade, would I take this trade if no one saw the result? If your answer depends on recognition, money, or ego, you're not acting from detached confidence. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need applause, validation, or excitement. Greed, on the other hand, is loud. It shouts at you through your impulses, your overtrading, your hope-driven decisions. The quieter you can be in your confidence, the louder greed dies. Detached confidence also requires trust in probability. No setup guarantees a win, and no trader can control the market. Winners internalize this and focus on executing their edge repeatedly. Losers chase certainty because they cannot tolerate randomness. They enter trades emotionally, hoping to beat probability. Neutrality allows you to respect randomness without fighting it. You learn to accept losses as part of the game and wins as a byproduct of process. Ultimately, detached confidence transforms trading from a high-stakes emotional battlefield into a strategic performance exercise. The market stops controlling you, you control your behavior. You follow your plan with calm assurance, understanding that outcomes are temporary but discipline is permanent. You stop chasing highs and fearing lows. Instead, you operate from a place of balance, where greed and fear no longer dictate your choices. Remember this: real confidence is quiet, greed is loud. Every time you trade from calm, deliberate, neutral space, you reinforce this principle. Your emotions become your ally, not your enemy. You trade not for thrills, not for validation, but for mastery. That's the mindset of winners. Detached confidence is not a gift, It's a skill built intentionally with mindfulness, structure, and repeated practice. It is the emotional foundation that allows you to survive, adapt, and thrive in the unpredictable world of trading. By now, you've traveled the path from understanding the subtle whisper of greed to learning how to transform it into disciplined action. We've explored how greed begins in the mind, the emotional cycle of euphoria, hope, and overconfidence. We've uncovered the neuroscience behind dopamine loops, how the brain rewards being right more than actual profit, and how small lapses compound into catastrophic losses. You've seen the difference between ambition and greed, understood the dangers of overtrading, and recognized subtle behaviors that sabotage your consistency. Finally, we explored how to transform raw emotional energy into discipline, and how detached confidence creates a mental state where greed no longer controls your decisions. Now comes the integration phase, building a system that protects you from yourself. Because here's the truth: greed isn't evil, it's human. It can't be eliminated, only managed. Greed becomes a trap not because it exists, but because it blinds you. It makes you feel alive while simultaneously eroding the very foundation of your trading career. The question isn't whether greed will appear. It's whether you'll have a framework to prevent it from controlling your choices. That framework is a greed-proof system. System thinking in trading means designing a process that protects your mind from impulsive decisions. It's not enough to rely on willpower. Systems remove the opportunity for emotion to hijack your judgment. A well-built system turns decisions into automatic, structured actions, leaving little room for greed to infiltrate. Let's break down the pillars of a greed-proof trading system. 1. Risk rules. This is your financial backbone. Define your maximum loss per trade and per day, and adhere to it no matter what. Include stop-loss rules that cannot be overridden by emotion. The goal isn't just preserving capital. It's preserving mental clarity. Each day that you follow risk limits, you strengthen your ability to act rationally even under pressure. 2. Emotional checkpoints. Day trading is mental, not just financial. Pause rituals are essential. After every win-loss or sequence of trades, take 5-10 minutes to step away from the screen. Reflect on your decisions. Ask yourself, was I following my rules or chasing emotion? These emotional pauses act like brakes, preventing greed from snowballing unnoticed. 3. Trade journaling. Think of your journal as a truth mirror. Record not only the trade details, entry, exit, setup, but also your emotional state at every key decision point. Did excitement, fear, or hope influence your choices? Over time, journaling reveals patterns that the mind ignores in real time, exposing hidden emotional leaks that could otherwise lead to destructive trades. 4. Process metrics. Stop obsessing over profit as the primary measure of success. Instead, track metrics like setup accuracy, adherence to rules, multiple achieved per trade, and quality of execution. Success becomes measured by discipline, not dollars. When process is the focus, greed loses its power because the outcome is secondary to execution. Building a greed-proof system is also about understanding that every click is a test of maturity. Every trade, every adjustment, every decision offers a moment to practice restraint, patience, and adherence to process. The market constantly challenges your discipline. It doesn't reward impulsiveness or ego. Every time you act from clarity rather than compulsion, you reinforce your long-term edge. To solidify this framework, create your personal greed manual. This is a living document that outlines your emotional triggers, moments when greed typically appears, predefined responses, what actions to take when those triggers arise, rules that cannot be broken, risk limits, trade counts, process goals. This manual is your shield against human impulses. It's the bridge between knowledge and action, between understanding greed and escaping its trap. Like any skill, it requires constant practice, review, and adaptation. Over time, the manual becomes internalized, the system becomes instinctive, and greed no longer dictates your trading behavior. Finally, remember these truths. The moment you stop chasing money, money starts respecting you. When you trade from process instead of impulse, when your focus is on execution rather than profit, the market begins to reward clarity, patience, and discipline. Greed destroys focus. Focus creates freedom. Freedom is the ultimate currency of trading. The ability to act with intention, survive through uncertainty, and consistently grow. By integrating awareness, emotional control, disciplined transformation, and a structured system, you escape the greed trap. You don't just react to the market anymore. You operate from a place of mastery, where every decision is deliberate, every action purposeful, and every result a reflection of your process, not your impulses. That is the essence of trading with a greed-proof mind.